again. Welcome to the Golden Hour. I am Golden Duffy, your host, and I have a very, very special guest today that I'm extremely excited to share with you. You know, anytime we're in these low frequencies in life when we are battling sickness or disease and we're looking for answers, we have to get in the solution. And I believe this man is extremely solution oriented and that he can help you if you are experiencing anything that is less than optimal health, but extreme difficulty in that field where you need to do something now to create a life of thriving and health. Dr. Benjamin Benulis is the author of the book, Create Health, Reverse Autoimmune Disease Without Drugs or Side Effects, their side effects. People with autoimmune disease work with Dr. Ben to conquer their condition once and for all, because most are sick of dealing with chronic pain, chronic fatigue, and medications that just give them side effects. He helps them learn the tools to get out of pain, get their vitality back, and feel like a normal person again. The bottom line is you can reclaim control of your body instead of allowing it to control you. Welcome, Dr. Ben.
Awesome. Thanks so much for having me. Glad we're finally doing this.
Yeah. I know. I'm excited to have you here. And I think that people really benefit from what you do. And it's so funny how I met Ben. We've actually been following each other on Instagram for a while and Facebook. And I went to a seminar recently in Vegas and he was there. And I was like, wait, I know you. It's like crazy how the universe just brings us together. And I love that.
Yeah, the guy who was running the event wasn't there. And I walked into the room and I recognized you. And I was like, wait, I must not be in the right place. Or am I in the right place? I don't know.
It's like when your social media becomes real, there's like real people out here. Yeah. So I love what you're doing. And I'm a huge advocate of health and wellness and taking our power back, because I think a lot of these diseases, especially autoimmune, I've worked with a lot of people on autoimmune stuff that believe they're going to have it forever and there's nothing they can do about it. And the best they can do is just take medicine for the rest of their life and deal with the side effects. So can you just share a little bit about how you started your health journey and what drew you so passionately to this subject?
Sure. So I, lived a pretty normal, what I considered healthy life the first, 27, 28 years. And then came down with a series of, health challenges. At the time, I didn't know what they were, but I was dealing with chronic fatigue, chronic muscle pain, really bad digestive issues, eczema on my hands, brain fog, kind of a host of things that didn't really fit into any particular category. And in the beginning, they started off kind of mild, but over the course of about 6 months to a year, really snowballed to where the chronic fatigue got so bad I had no energy. I was knocking back, 2 to 3 Monster Energy drinks a day just to maintain. The digestive issues kind of ballooned to the point where it's all the food that I ate, every meal I ate would have me in immense amounts of pain. And my body just always felt sore and tired. And I was starting to lose my focus at work. I was working as an engineer in the tech industry for a long time. And my performance in that just began to tank. And so, it was pretty much my own health challenges that led me to this, and kind of going through the mainstream medical assessment and treatment and realizing that it was kind of a merry-go-round and I wasn't really getting anywhere. And after a while, I just had to, jump off the merry-go-round and tuck and roll and hope that everything turned out okay.
So what was the time frame of that process, and how many different medications did you try before you finally went, enough is enough?
I probably saw about, 10 or 12 practitioners, and I got a lot of your blood work looks normal. All the tests look normal. You don't look sick. We can't find what's wrong with you. You sure this isn't all in your head? Maybe we need to get you into psychiatry. I think I got prescribed maybe 2 or 3 things over that time frame, but it was mostly a lot of no answers, but more importantly, no one really seemed to care. It was well, let's just frame this as it's in your head, and there actually is nothing wrong with you, and we're just gonna tell you that because I guess we think you're stupid or something. So that
Wow,
process,
that's not helpful.
yeah. But I mean, that's how they treat
And
people. I mean, not when I say they, I guess
but
I'm generalizing, but a lot of doctors.
did you
I'm sorry, what was the question?
did you start did you start believing that like maybe I am crazy?
No, I just I
Good.
noticed that, like, I guess I had enough insight to realize that they weren't trying very hard, and they were kind of
Mm,
like following a protocol, and like weren't really doing a lot of critical thinking. They were following an algorithm essentially, and
yeah.
just based on the fact that there's a total lack of empathy. You know, it was
Right.
like, I only got 5 minutes with you. I only got 10 minutes with you. Like, I'm going over this paper, and the piece of paper tells me that you're fine, and I don't really have the time or interest to dig into this. So I'm just gonna pass you off to the next guy. And I thought, like, in the beginning, I thought like, oh, I'm going to see like all these different specialists. Like, I must be important, right?
Right.
No, it's more money for the system, the more doctors you see, and it's sort of like, well, we can't figure this out, so I'm just gonna pass you on to the next guy, pass you on to the next guy. So that was my experience, and in the beginning it was intriguing, but it got pretty old pretty soon
Mhm.
when I was just being told the same things and getting a lot of shrugs of shoulders, and like it quickly became apparent that I was just a cog in the wheel, and they really didn't have any interest like in figuring it out, right? Because you watch these medical mystery shows like House MD online, and they're like, "Oh, it's the mystery illness. What could it be?" And they're like in a room together, and they're like throwing out ideas, trying to get to the bottom of it. Like, we got to figure this thing out for this guy, and that's
No.
not what happens.
No.
Yeah, it's that's a TV drama. In reality, they're like, can't figure it out.
Yeah, just
Whatever.
send and that's what they do is they just send you to the next person, and that's such a cycle of, like, being excited, like, "Oh, I'm gonna find this person and they're gonna help me," and then being disappointed once again over and over and over again. That they say that's the definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over again and not getting results. So, when you did finally realize this is not working for me, and you were able to get out of the problem, because that's what happens a lot with manifestation of health, sickness, whatever you're creating, when you're in that problem and you're constantly seeking some sort of answer, you're vibrating with the problem. So you have to completely shift, which is what you did by getting out of that cycle and that process. What did you do next?
It was more of like a self, like I became just like a researcher and my own guinea pig, right? It was sort of like, okay, obviously these people don't care enough to figure it out. This isn't
Yep.
like terminal stage 4 cancer, right? It's
Right.
not like it's
Yep.
these are pretty, like, the problems are mundane to some degree, like chronic fatigue. I'm just tired, right? Like, I'm
Yeah.
sore. My stomach hurts. Like, it's not crazy. Now, it was very severe. It was like severe, all of those things, but they were essentially mundane problems to some degree. So my
Right.
my thought process was like, maybe this is figure outable. Like, I've got a science background. I did quite a lot of like biology, biotech stuff in high school, and I did engineering in undergrad. Like, I think if I just dove into this, like, I could maybe find the person who could help me, or I could find like the answers. It
Yeah.
was kind of like
Yeah.
it was just sort of like, I'm not getting help here, but this can't be too horrible. Like, let's just get resourceful and try to figure it out. Like, it's like I
Yeah.
figured out a lot of other things in my life, a lot of like complex things. Like, I figure out partial differential equations and calculus, and like
Right.
a lot of things that were very complicated. It's like, like this has got, like, I got to be able to figure it. Like, the answer, there's an internet, and this was like 13 years ago. Like, still, even back then, like, there was information out there. Like, if you dug enough,
Sure.
you could find things. So it was more of like, okay, like there's got to be a way. It was just my mentality.
Right.
So,
Did you
oh,
freeze?
okay.
I
So
think
then
you
you're
froze.
okay. What did I do? Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
that was my mentality going into it, and I just remember like reading lots of information. I remember reading things like, oh, if you change your diet and just eat better, a lot of these problems go away. And I thought, okay, yeah, that solution almost sounds too easy, and it also sounds like work. So no, thank you.
Yeah.
Um,
Yes.
so like
Which I'm sure you feel it a lot with clients, because it's like changing what you're doing on a daily basis from a completely different perspective. And it's for people to change that piece is really challenging, but it's like, do you want to be sick or do you want to be well? Like, are you willing to do the things to help yourself to get well?
yeah, it's interesting because it's like I was willing to do all this work and like research and like look up
Yes.
information, but to actually make changes in my life, there was initial resistance because it was just sort of like, oh, that just seems like it was more of like threatening my identity of like I've always eaten like
Yes.
crap and never been overweight. So if I had to
Yeah.
like make mea culpa and admit that I was poisoning myself with my eating, like that would be a blow to my ego. Was really what was going on.
That totally. And there's people that identify even with the sickness and the fatigue, because if I'm sick and I'm fatigued and I have this problem, I don't have to go out there and do anything with my life. I can just lay here and use this as an excuse. So there's a lot of identity things that we have to shift out of to create this new healthy, vital experience.
Yeah, for sure. And one of the things that, if I'm working with a new client, like one of the things I get clear on first is like, what is like, if you were to get healthier, like if things were to shift, like what would have to be different for you to be happy with the results?
Yeah.
And like, that's a challenging question for a person who's been locked in this identity of I'm the chronically ill person, right? So like what would life
Exactly.
like to be healthy? They probably haven't been asked that. And
Yeah.
oftentimes like they're drawing blanks. They need to be prompted like, no, 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 you have energy and you're not in chronic pain anymore.
Yeah.
What are you going to do? And they're like, I don't know. I just want to not have pain. It's like, okay, well,
Yeah.
it's cool to tell me about what you don't want, but like we gotta
Yeah.
have a target to shoot for, you
Yeah, you got
know?
to visualize it. You got to feel it. You got to visualize it. You got to set that intention for it, because if you're too much in that sickness, you can't actually create health. So
Yeah,
true.
which is ironically the name of my book, but
Yes.
and I can tell you a story about how like me and the publisher fought for ages and all these different possible titles,
Yep.
and I didn't like any of them. And then I had a passage in the book about how it's like stop trying to fight disease and just create health. But like you said,
Yep.
like people focus on the problem and what's wrong and like the story behind that, and it's like
Yes.
so hard to get out of.
So hard.
But like you know, and so like what I teach is not about how to fight your disease and how to cure your disease. Like I have no interest in curing anybody of anything. Your
Hmm.
body is capable of healing itself. I'm giving it the tools teaching you the tools to do that yourself.
I
If I
love
could
it.
wave a wand, I mean, that would be an easier solution, and I'd do that.
Yeah.
But I think
For
there's
sure.
like, yeah, there's a tendency to focus on the problem.
A
And,
complete.
we talk about like, okay, we got to fight this disease. Well, all the things that we're trying to fight, like we have a, war on cancer, right? And it's like now cancer is the number 2 cause of death and creeping up on number 1. And like we wanted a war on drugs. And now it's like overdose deaths from opioids are through the roof. And like Americans are on more pharmaceuticals than ever. It's like the drugs are winning the war. The cancer is winning the war on terror. We still got a ton of that, right? It's like we focus on fighting the thing that we don't want.
Yep.
And, from a manifestation perspective, like we're just giving energy to that thing, right?
Yes. Yes.
We see it in a lot of other societal movements.
Yeah.
And so it's like,
Yeah.
we got to focus on the opposite of what we don't want, which is the thing
Absolutely.
that we actually want.
The thing that we actually want. What is the name of your book? For some reason, I didn't get the link on that. Can you just share the title?
Oh, sure. Yeah. So the book is called Create Health, Reverse Autoimmune Disease Without Drugs or Their Side Effects.
Wow. Hold
Because
on.
yeah.
Without side effects?
Without
Without.
without drugs or their side effects. You read it at the beginning, so you have it there. But
I know. I want to put it on the screen.
okay.
Got it. Keep going.
Okay. So yeah,
Yeah.
it really becomes this paradigm shift, right? Because it's like, okay, we're gonna focus on, like, instead of like just focusing on stopping your disease, it's like, what can we do to make you as healthy as possible? And then your body can do the work from healing from it. And I'm sure you know, from a manifestation perspective, you work with a lot of people who are like, I have X problem right now. How do I make X problem go away?
Yes.
And you got to be like, well, what would life be like without that problem?
Yeah.
And they're
You have to start getting out of that. Moving away from that identity. And I think that's what you do when you're being solution oriented, when you're in that energy of, okay, where is our next step to lead you to what you're telling me that you want, and move away from the focus of what we don't want. Because when you wake up in pain every day, and you know this, when you wake up in pain and when you wake up in chronic fatigue, that is a constant thought process and frequency that you're sending that signal. You send that signal to your body. I don't feel good. I don't feel good. I don't feel good. And then in order to create health, you have to do something that's going to shift you out of that mindset.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you're in it, it's really hard. That's not
Yeah,
easy.
absolutely. I just had a back thing, man. It was hard. Every day was hard. Like I was in pain constantly, and finally I was like, okay, enough is enough. I have to do something to actually create some sort of shift in my energy field. So I started walking, I started doing yoga again, I started stretching, saw a chiropractor, did all the things that I know will promote my health. And now I'm in a much better state today. So we have to get out of the problem.
Yeah, I love that. I didn't realize how much what I was talking about was aligned with that until we started talking about here. So that's awesome.
Of course, of course. So I'm going to put your Instagram up here. This is how you get in touch with Dr. Ben. And I think when it comes to people getting out of the problem, all right, so let's keep going. Where did you go from there? So you were researching, you were checking things out, and this really led you down a path of like passion, new career, fulfillment, the whole thing, right?
Yeah, yeah. So, like I said, I think where we left off was like I found information, started to find information that, if you change your diet, this can improve. And my first reaction was like, well, yeah, but no, like, how do I really fix the problem? Was
Yeah.
basically my. And so I would read about different.
Was your diet really bad?
Oh yeah, I was on a steady diet of like, burritos, pizza, and Mountain Dew.
Okay. All right. Okay.
But I had been
Shock.
thin my whole life, and so I figured I had good genes. And I remember like things would happen at work, like they'd pass around like donuts or brownies or whatever, and I'd be the guy who like took two of them, and people would be
Yeah.
like, "Oh, that's gonna catch up with you one day," like, and I'm like, "No, I've been thin my whole life. Like, I'm not getting fat." But the ironic thing is, it did catch up with me, but just not in the way that anybody had
Yeah.
anticipated.
Yeah. Skinny is not exactly healthy, right?
No. And the
Yeah.
thing with autoimmune disease is that most people show no outward symptoms, right? So that's another reason you kind of get gaslit into believing like it's all in your head. Like, no, there's nothing, like you don't look sick, right? And it becomes this weird mind thing where it's like, oh, maybe I'm not, or am I just faking it or being dramatic?
Yeah.
So that's something that people go through. But anyway, I kind of bypassed that, and I was like, okay, well, maybe there's like, maybe if maybe I just need to eat like the healthy versions of the junk food. Like I'll just get the gluten-free,
Right.
dairy-free, fun-free macaroni and cheese.
Fun free. Yeah.
That's
Taste free.
microwavable. Yeah, yeah. Tastes like cardboard, is twice as much money, and like gets you 10%
Yeah.
better.
Yeah.
And so I'm doing
Yep.
that for a while. I'm trying to find like someone was like, oh, noni juice. Like it comes from the Amazon. I'm like, oh, okay, I'll start drinking this. It's like it tastes like there's just piles of sugar in it, like added sugar. And then of course you look at the label and there is.
Yep.
And I'm just sort of like doing these little like alternative things that aren't really adding value. And so at some point I'm like, and my digestion's just getting worse and worse and worse. Like my body's just like not tolerating any foods. And so I'm like, okay, let's just get down to basics here. Like fruits and vegetables are probably the one thing that won't bother my stomach. So, but I don't want to like learn how to cook and be a chef and make recipes. I was more of just a takeout guy and a microwave guy. So I was like, okay, what can I do? Well, I guess I can just apply the microwave guy thing to a blender, right? It's the same premise. It's like you open it up, you throw the food inside, you close the door, you hit a button, a minute or two later, there's your food, right? Like I can do that. I love that. Sort of like lazy, late 20s, red-blooded American male. Like I'm not going to learn how to cook. Forget that.
That's a good shift in your perception, though, to go, oh, the blender can be very similar to the microwave where I'm just throwing stuff in, because a lot of people I know, I am one of them. When I started doing smoothies, before I started doing smoothies, it's like, oh, I really don't want to do that. It literally takes like 2 minutes to shove a bunch of things in a blender, blend it up, and you have this amazing and delicious and healthy thing within minutes. So I like the shift that you did with the microwave and the blender. I think that could be helpful for people.
Yeah, it's like less time than it would take to, drive to the pizza place, right?
For sure.
So that was like that was like how I kind of convinced myself it was worth a shot, right? And so I was just basically like taking whatever I had in the fridge and throwing it in the blender and hoping like hell that it tasted good. That was just my strategy. I had no concept of like, this is a healing diet that will save. I just want to eat foods that didn't hurt my stomach. Like that's the level of consciousness I was at the time.
And did it taste good after coming off of like all this processed food? Did it take a little time to like acclimate to the taste?
Sometimes it tasted good, sometimes it didn't. I was kind of willing to like, I thought it had to taste meh. Like I just wanted it to be tolerable, right? Like I was at that point, I was willing to sacrifice taste, which I didn't know I didn't need to do. In order to have my stomach not hurt. Like I'd rather deal with like, it doesn't taste the best, but at least I'm not going to feel like I'm going to explode in 10 minutes.
Got it. And did you go all smoothie? Like that's all you were doing with smoothies?
I was doing like as much as I could of it. I didn't really understand. The concept of like only drinking smoothies or replacing everything I was eating it was just sort of like, okay, this is a healthier alternative, right?
Gotcha.
Like I'm just going to do some of this. But I would notice that when I did that, my stomach wouldn't hurt versus anything else I ate, my stomach would hurt.
Right.
And so I remember at one point I was like, I'm just kind of throwing like whatever's in the like in the fridge, like in the blend. Like maybe I should look up recipes, right? And I guess I'm more of a visual person.
Yeah.
So I was just like, I'm gonna go look up a video. I'm gonna go on YouTube and search smoothie recipes.
Love it.
And that was really tripping and falling down the rabbit hole. Like that was like, whoa.
Too much information. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I would see all these smoothie recipes, but then they were talking about all these other, like I was watching this one guy's videos and he was making smoothies, but he was like a raw foodist and he lived like in the woods.
Yeah.
And, like made them outside his RV and it was kind of like entertainment value. It was like, oh my God, this guy is crazy.
Yeah.
And so he would talk about like he would make a smoothie or he'd make a green juice. And then he'd talk about like, if I had cancer, I wouldn't get chemotherapy or radiation or do any of that. I would just drink this. And I'm like, whoa, dude, like just make the recipe. Okay. Like,
that's a claim. Yeah.
Yeah. Save me the crazy talk. Okay.
Do you have recipes in your book?
Yeah. I have, a bunch of recipes in my book.
That's Dr. Ben's book. Okay. Keep going.
And so, but like there was some sort of entertainment value of like watching this guy's videos. Like, I don't know, even though a lot of the things he said seemed ridiculous and outrageous, like, oh, I wouldn't do chemotherapy and radiation. I'd just drink this. I was like, wow, dude, save the medical advice for people that are qualified, but and it almost became me poking fun at him, but like I kept watching the videos and I kept making the recipes. And this was back when like YouTube, you had 10 minutes. So he would just like spend the beginning of the video, like making the recipe. And then the rest of the 10 minutes, like just talking about whatever crazy thing was on his mind. Gotcha. And, but as I was doing this, I'm feeling better. Like I'm having more energy. My stomach isn't hurting as bad. Like things are starting to feel better. I'm like, maybe some of the stuff, maybe he's not right about everything, but like there's some truth
Something
to
to
some of the stuff that he's saying, and
Yeah.
it was this kind of a slow indoctrination process, but it was really the fact that I was seeing results, that things were starting to shift, that I was like, okay, maybe this dude's onto something. And I
Yeah.
remember like one day I had to find some thumb drive to do some kind of presentation or something at work, and I'm fiddling through my laptop bag trying to find the thumb drive, and I come across this compartment where I had just used to take single dose Pepto-Bismol and like these little things and just keep them in my laptop bag and just like eat them every day, just take it.
Wow.
And a meal, got to take it, right? And I
Oh,
open up the thing and there's like, wow, it's been a few months since I've had one of these. Like I forgot that they were there.
that's
Whoa,
amazing.
I guess things have shifted.
Yep.
And so it was kind of a natural progression from there. I just got, as I started seeing results, I got more and more excited about it, started digging for more information, started reading books on this thing, like, oh, raw foods. Like I had heard of that before, and I just thought people were doing it just for the sake of like
Not
being
wanting to
crazy or
cook.
something, or like just for the sake of like, check out what I can do kind of thing. I was like, oh, no, like this is actually like, oh, the kindergarten teacher said fruits and vegetables are the healthiest foods. Like she was right. And I wasn't eating any of those. And now I'm eating tons of them. And like,
Feeling
and,
better.
like things started to happen where I was doing better than I was before. Right. Like I went from like chronically fatigued to like doing all right to like, wow, I keep doing this. Now I have like lots of energy. I have like excess energy. I want to like train for a half marathon.
Amazing.
And so it was a gradual metamorphosis. And then at one point I was like, man, what if I really did this and dialed it in and did like 30 days of like all raw foods. And I did that and just saw like a massive transformation in myself. Like my skin issues cleared up, chronic pain was gone. It went from, I was dealing with on and off fatigue. It was like energy was through the roof. Like everything improved, across the board and like better than I thought I could be. And I
Yeah.
was like, wow, there's something to this. This is cool. And it became just like a hobby and an obsession for me. And partly because I, I was pretty bored with a lot of other aspects of my life, especially my career.
Yeah.
So somewhere along the lines, I was like, man, like, all these doctors that, a year or two ago couldn't help me, like with the knowledge that I have now that I've kind of just accumulated through just being
Trial and error. Yep.
fascinated about this and doing my own research. It's like I could help a lot of people that they couldn't help, and I don't even have like a medical degree.
Exactly.
So that was kind of the precipitation to like change careers. Because the other thing is like when you're eating that way and you're no longer like numbing out your feelings with food, right? Because unhealthy processed food is like just numbs out feelings, right? It's like, oh, I'm gonna feel good after I eat pizza. No, you're just gonna not feel bad, right?
Yeah. Right.
I didn't have that as an outlet, so I began to like really be in touch with like, wow, I'm really not happy here. They pay me a ton of money, like the job is great. They take great care of me. I have nothing to complain about, but this is not fulfilling to make microchips that are going into TVs in Japan. Like I just do not care, and I'm sick of faking like I care just to get by every day.
Yes.
So that was kind of the genesis of the career change that eventually happened.
Wow. So you actually went to school then, right?
Yeah, I had to go back to school. Yeah, I had to it's funny, I had to take prerequisite classes. Like there was like a semester where I was doing like a Saturday, I was still working a full-time job in tech and then taking my Saturday class at the community college across the street.
Wow.
So I had to like humble myself a little bit.
And that's huge. I mean, to go from having like a pretty thriving career where you're making money and you're doing well, and it's something that's pretty high regard what you're doing, and just say, I'm going to do this other thing because this is where my passion lies. This is where my creativity lies. I feel purposeful here. That is a big leap. That's a big leap. We call that a quantum leap, actually.
Sounds about right.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's like it's letting go of everything you've ever known to go towards this thing that has created such improvement in your life. Like I think a lot of times we go through things like that so that we can become that person that brings this information to other people. And I know that you are that beacon of light for a lot of people.
Yeah, definitely the wound becomes the gift.
Yeah.
Our greatest challenges can become our greatest lessons and our greatest gifts to pass on to others. So
I
Yeah,
love
I
that.
don't regret any of that experience. Like it was, I'm like so glad it happened, going through all that.
Yeah. Yeah. No, definitely, because you wouldn't feel as good and you wouldn't have this incredible information, and you have impacted so many people with this information. What are some of the things that you've seen from just applying these principles to other people's lives that are really kind of in the same position you are, maybe even worse with their health?
Yeah, I've seen some pretty miraculous things happen. And the cool thing about it is like, even though I know it works, it never gets old. Um,
Right.
so one of the first clients I worked with, he had ulcerative colitis, which is like an autoimmune disease of the colon. And I won't get into the details of what the symptoms are because it's pretty gross, but you can imagine like your colon's under attack. Like, it's not going to be pleasant. And they actually wanted to remove his colon. That was like the medicine's not making it better. And it's just like, there's no other choice at this point. Like it's got to come out. And that's when he kind of was seeking out answers and stumbled upon me. And it was like, okay, we're going to do this process and we're going to, I told them just like delay the surgery, just tell them
Yeah.
you need a few months. Right.
Yeah.
And then, if we don't get anywhere, obviously it's still your decision, but like and so he was a teacher and this was kind of around, the May, June timeframe. Like, let's just do the summer of this eating this way.
Yeah.
And of course, like he's got a vital organ on the line here. So he's like dialed in. And September rolls around. They want to do a follow-up colonoscopy, a follow-up scope on him to see like what's going on. And they get him in there, and they do the scope, and then he has the appointment with the doc to go over it. And they're like, "Oh, we got to reschedule this appointment. Something's wrong. We scoped you, and we're going over here, and it's completely disease-free colon. So there must have been a mistake at the whatever, the lab or whatever." So we got to reschedule you for next week because obviously we got the data's bad.
Wow.
And it comes back in the next week and they're like, well, it wasn't a mistake. Like this is like you had a spontaneous remission. Like this is amazing. Good job. And they're like, well, do you want to hear what I did?
Yeah.
It's just,
Yeah.
let's tell them about this diet thing. They're like, yeah, this just happens sometimes. It's just magic, like
Right.
I had nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
So that was a big one. Helped a lot of people heal from like rheumatoid arthritis, which is a joint pain one. Had a guy heal from a super rare one that was like his whole body broke out in boils.
Oh.
So yeah, there's been a lot of crazy things where like people come to me and they're like, can you help with this? And I'm like, I've never worked with that before because that's rare, but we're going to give it a shot and bam,
Yeah,
so
it seems like this is a path to a lot of different modalities as far as like creating health from like when it comes to autoimmune disease, like my understanding is basically your body is under attack, right? Like your immune system is it just gone? You have no immune system? Like when I think auto, right? Like it's myself. Yeah. Like myself is fighting my own body.
Yeah.
Can you explain a little bit of that so that people that maybe aren't as clear understand what that's about?
Yeah, that's a great question.
They have it and they don't even know,
Yeah. We probably should have clarified that at the beginning. So thanks for asking now.
We'll get to
it. But yeah, so your immune system is essentially making a mistake. And this is under debate of exactly what biological, pathological, physiological phenomenon is going on. But the consensus understanding is that the immune system is attacking some part of the body by mistake. The immune system that's supposed to fight the disease is now fighting your joints or your colon or your thyroid or your brain or some part of you, your skin. Yeah. And so the traditional medical treatment is your immune system is attacking you. That's the root cause. Let's suppress your immune system with drugs, and then your immune system won't attack you and you'll be healthy again. But the problem is
you get sick from other things, I would imagine.
Yeah, you kind of need that immune system, right? Like, wasn't there some kind of virus going around for a bit there? Like so like long term, you shut down your immune system. Well, that can lead to really severe things like cancer. And that's even like on the box for a lot of these drugs. If you're on it for 25 years, you can develop cancer. Well, how do I get off of it? Well, you don't. You got to be on it the rest of your life.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
that's like the mainstream model is to just like the mainstream medical model is to essentially like find something to break in the body, some process to impede so that you can make the symptom go away.
Right.
So
Right.
that's the fighting the disease model is like, we're going to just like basically break something that's like of less consequence to solve a supposed greater good. But there's always consequences anytime you break, like anytime you interfere with something, right?
Really. And I would rather get to the root of something than just keep putting band-aids over it. Like get to the root, figure out what it is and heal it so that my body can do what my body is designed to do, which our bodies are so brilliant. And we've taken on this belief that we need medicine to create a healthy body. And it's like our bodies do it for us, but we have to fuel it with the right nutrients and the right thoughts and the right energies every day in order to create that optimal health.
Yeah, absolutely. And people are so indoctrinated by this medical system that says
Yeah.
like there's no cure. Anyone like Dr. Benulis says that there is, which I don't say that there is. Is like
You just
full of
have
it.
evidence. You don't say it, you just have evidence, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't like the word cure because
Yeah.
I use the word reverse because it's like
Yeah.
I can't just snap them, or give you like the one pill that's going to fix it. It's like
Mhm.
you have to make a change, right? And if you eat healthy and you can reverse the disease, and I've actually worked with people who did it. Like I did this a long time ago, and then I went back to my unhealthy ways, and now I'm like have the disease again. Well,
Oh,
so it's and people even say, well, it's not a cure because it's like if they eat unhealthy again, the disease comes back. Like, okay, well, until they come up with that, this is definitely the next best option.
yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so true. So one of the things that I wanted you to debunk, because I think this was something that I believed for a few years, was that fruit is unhealthy, that, fruit is sugar and it's carbs. And, for a long time, I believed in like the all protein, which intuitively never felt right to me, to just put in huge amounts of meat into my body with nothing else just never felt right to me. First of all, my digestion basically shuts down when I do things like that. So I know my body's telling me like this isn't the right thing to do. So I recently got back to fruit and smoothies and just bringing in as much alive and fresh food as I can. And I have seen a big result in just energy and vitality and also sugar cravings. I used to have massive sugar cravings every afternoon. I'd hit the gummy bear bag and I had them in my glove compartment. I only allowed myself 9, but some days I'd do twice that. I don't have sugar cravings anymore. So can you speak to fruit and the incredible properties of fruit? I know you eat like, I don't know, 30 mangoes a day. Like you got to check out his Instagram because the guy is, you should be called like the mango doctor. I don't know.
Yeah. There's the video of me like sped up eating. The algorithm says, hey, do more of these videos, right? When they got 20,000 hits, I'm like, okay, y'all see me just eating meals of fruit? I mean,
Entertaining. It's very
yeah,
entertaining. Yeah, you just get in there but can you talk to the properties of fruit in general, but also just
sure.
live foods?
So where I think a lot of people and like health advice gets it wrong is that it really tries to equate like processed and refined sugar with fruit. It's like, oh, well, it's got fruit. We did these studies on high fructose corn syrup and how it makes you fat and it dysregulates your metabolism and it causes all these health issues. And like, well, there's fructose in fruit too. So it must be the fructose that's the problem.
Yeah.
But the thing is like, that's not how nutrition works. You can't like isolate these individual ingredients. It's a symphony of a bunch of different things happening. Nothing really works in a vacuum.
Right.
And so it's like to equate high fructose corn syrup with mangoes is a false equivalency.
Stupid.
Right? Because mangoes have all these other things in them besides sugar,
Good
vitamins, minerals, phytonutrients, fiber, which slows the absorption of sugar so you don't get a sugar spike.
stuff.
And you can, I should make a video where I just eat the 10 mangoes and then I check my blood sugar and it's
You
in
should.
range, and then people, leave me alone. So fruit is really the optimal food for human beings, right? Like you see a mango and it just looks appealing, right? Like,
Yes.
and you don't need to cook it, you don't need to do anything to prepare it. It just needs to ripen. And it's a beautiful color. It tastes good without having to add any sauce to it or seasoning. And so it tastes good in its natural state. And this is a sign that it's healthy for you. And
Right.
so a lot of people avoid it because they're like, oh, that's carbs. That's like, of course, Mountain Dew and cupcakes and donuts and pastries and candy and gummy bears are not good for you. No one's contesting that. But
Right.
to equate a whole natural food that grows off of a tree with something that's like ultra processed, it's a totally different animal. And so,
Yeah.
you're saying, hey, my sugar cravings went away. Well, it's like, really, the brain doesn't understand what a gummy worm is, right? Like, whether you want to say that the human body is a divine creation from creation, or it's an evolutionary process that happened over billions of years. Either way, the whole existence of the gummy bear is a novel thing that the brain doesn't have an understanding of, right? So when
Right.
it's sending the I want sugar signal, what it's really sending is I want fruit, and I want the nutrition that's in fruit.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Yes.
it sends the signal, and if you eat the fruit, well, then your body gets the nutrition it wants, and it shuts off the signal,
Yes.
right?
That makes sense.
But if you eat the gummy worms, the brain goes, okay, we got the sugar, that was cool, but like we didn't get the nutrition yet, so we need to eat more. The 9 gummy worms didn't do the trick. Maybe if we eat another 9, then the vitamins will come in, right? Because the brain
Yeah.
doesn't know that there's no nutrition. So it's just like you keep eating and eating. You're like, oh, I got a sugar monster. I can't stop eating this sugar. It's like, because your body never got the nutrients it was trying to get. So it just keeps firing the signal over and over and over again. And the people are like, why can't I stop? It's addictive.
Yeah. That's so brilliant. And I do call it the sugar monster. And I'm very conscious about not waking the sugar monster. So I really work to stay away from those foods. And it's so funny. My daughter was just saying we had a cookie in the cabinet. My daughter brings home cookies from work, like fresh baked cookies. And I had a little bit of it and I didn't want any more. My daughter was like, why didn't you finish this? And I was like, because I don't want it. I'm not going to eat it if I don't want it. That doesn't even make sense. So just recognizing that the nutrients are what calms the body's state of not needing those unhealthy processed foods is a huge aha for me, for sure. And hopefully our audience as well.
I mean, if you think about it, is the body really going to have impulses to do things that are destructive to itself?
Shouldn't.
It's there for a reason, right?
Yeah.
And I experienced something similar too, because like when I started doing this, I was still working the corporate job. Well, then they would pass the brownies around and be like, good. And like, Ben is turning down brownies?
Right?
What?
Who
It's
is
like,
that?
no, y'all don't understand. Like I had 6 mangoes for breakfast. Like I'm good. Like it doesn't even look appealing,
Solid. Is there a potential to eat too much fruit?
I think if that were possible, I would have done it.
I was gonna say you haven't found it yet. So basically we're giving a permission slip today to eat as much fruit as you want. Is there like better fruits than other fruits, or are all fruits good?
I would say, all fruits are good. Find, what tastes good, what's in season, what's fresh. Because there's definitely like bad fruit out there, right? Like, and if you're not eating good quality stuff and you're forcing yourself to eat it's like forcing yourself to eat like soggy pizza every day. You're going to be like, ugh.
Yeah.
And I think what makes people like what confuses people, I'm like, no, all the food that I eat like tastes good. I'm never like, oh, this doesn't taste good, but I got to eat it because I know it's good for me. And I'll have clients that be like, well, I bought a papaya and I hate papaya, but I'm just eating it because I know it's good. I'm like, don't do that.
Don't do that. That's not going to help you. You're not going to be able to sustain that.
Yeah, stick to ones you like. Like it's supposed to taste good, but we have this mentality that's like, it's almost like religious in some ways. It's like I've got to stay away from the things that taste good, and I've got to only eat the things that taste bad because that's how I'm going to get healthy. Because unhealthy food tastes good, and like the commercials brainwash you for this, like right, like the woman like eating a salad, and it's a black and white, and then they give her the pizza pocket, and she's like, oh yeah, that's in its color, right? So we're very programmed as a society to believe that unhealthy food must or healthy food must taste bad. Like the only way it could be healthy is if it tasted bad, and if it tastes good, something must be wrong.
That's crazy. And you know what it is? It is shifting your mindset and it's getting used to these foods and trying them. Like I feel so blessed that I'm very attracted to healthy foods. I love salads. I love vegetables. I love fruit. I love smoothies. But you know, if I and I haven't been a junk food junkie for a long time. Like our family is very like non-processed foods, but it may take some time to shift your taste buds and your frequency, because when you're in eating those low vibrational foods, processed foods, you have a different attraction to that low vibrational stuff, especially if you're like doing it to like shove down your emotions. Like anytime
Yeah.
people are overweight, that's usually what they're doing. So when you get attracted to healthier foods, there's a little shift that happens, but it's freaking delicious. Like you would be so surprised what you can do. Every night I feel like I have a masterpiece of cooking because I just like I use my intuition and I use all my stuff in my fridge and I create these like incredibly tasty, delicious foods. But it may take some time to shift that for people, I guess is my point.
Yeah, and like, don't get me wrong, like I used to be an engineer. Like the processed foods are like literally designed in
Yeah.
labs to
Yeah.
be addictive and hyper palatable, right? So
Yeah.
you're fighting against, very
Yeah.
smart people who are like working hard to trick your brain into wanting their food.
Totally. No, without a shadow of a doubt. So you got to step out of that illusion and get into the reality. Like it just makes so much sense to eat things that are living. You know, I had a friend once, and this is what I do with a lot of foods, like pizza pockets. You said pizza pockets. I'm like, oh, like that kind of stuff just grosses me out now because I put a meaning to it that equates sickness or that equates a stomach ache for me. Or like the big one I do is donuts. I call them do nots because I do not eat them, because a donut to me is a stomach ache just waiting to happen. Yes, it's delicious for the 3 seconds it's in my mouth, but it's going to lead me to fatigue. My stomach's going to bloat. I'm not going to feel good. I might even get a headache from the gluten. So if you can equate those nasty, unhealthy foods with that idea, like take it to the end of it, then you have a better story about those foods so that they become something you don't do. I just don't eat that.
Yeah, it's funny because this makes me think of it. It's like what I'm teaching people is not fundamentally very complicated. It's like fruits and vegetables, the healthiest foods, eat those in abundance. It's simple, but it's not easy, right? So a lot of the work that I end up doing with people, if they, want like ongoing support or coaching from me, is a lot of it's like working through a lot of the emotional attachments and a lot of the things that cause them to fall back to unhealthy foods, even when they know they're not supposed to do it. Like people aren't like a lot of people aren't like lack of knowledge is not the number one barrier. It's
Right.
like it's more of like struggling to consistently apply, right? Like I
Yes.
really thought in the beginning, like, oh, I'm just going to put this information out there, and then
Yeah.
people are going to write me with their healing stories, and
Yes.
doesn't always. I mean, that happens, but like people
I
need
just had
support.
I just had an aha. Can I share it?
Sure.
So food, when they do that, it's a trauma response. So when you go back to unhealthy habits and stuff, it's a trauma response. And you're basically going back to an old identity that identified with low frequency foods that create unhealth in your body. So it's a trauma response. And once you know that and you're aware of it, you can work with it. But if you're just like doing it unconsciously, just unconsciously eating like a half a gallon of ice cream, you're not going to be able to work with it. But what you're doing with people is helping them to become conscious, like, why do I do these things and why do I go back to them? And that's what creates the real change.
100%. Yeah, for sure.
All right. And below you can get a hold of Dr. Ben on Instagram. This is his Instagram. And then here is his book as well. And I will put in the show notes, I'm going to put your link for your book. I don't know how I lost that in here, but
It's
this
just
is your book. They can Google it, right?
just createhealthbook.com is the
Okay.
website for the book. And it's on Amazon too, but obviously if you buy it through my website, I see more of that money. So
All right. So createhealthbook.com.
yeah, and I also if you buy it through my website, I throw in some extra bonuses there as well that
Okay.
like you won't get through Amazon. But yeah,
All right, let's
either
put that
way.
up. Createhealthbook.com. Awesome. All right. So I had a couple other questions. One is, so I asked you about, is there any unhealthy fruit? Do you suggest that people just kind of go like all raw? That's a big one. I like
Um,
food, Dr. Ben. I like to
Yeah,
cook
I
myself.
mean, it's people got to be ready. I mean, obviously, like the more raw food you eat, the better results you're going to get. But I generally find that when people are trying to negotiate with me of like how bad can I eat and still get results, they're the people that don't stick to it anyway.
Yeah,
So, but
I'm not gonna.
I have a actually have a medical doctor friend who has an autoimmune disease, and he kind of stumbled upon. I didn't want to. I knew that it would. Well, of what I taught would kind of go against everything he learned, so I never like
Yeah,
pushed any of it on him, but he like started following me on social media, downloaded one of my free guides, started implementing it. And he actually just texted me today being like, hey, I did new lab work and like all these markers improved. Like this is crazy, like better than I ever did on any drug.
that's
Um,
cool.
and so I don't know where I was. What was the question you're asking me if I go on a tangent?
I
Uh,
was talking about raw food. Like, should we be
oh yeah.
doing all raw? Yeah,
So
yeah.
so he was doing like 2 meals a day and then
Okay.
just eating whatever he was eating before for like the third meal of the day, and he was seeing like big shifts, and he's like, yeah, I don't think I could do this 100%.
We tip the
Okay,
scale.
yeah, but he's like he's seeing a difference, like he's not out of the woods yet, he's still on a couple of drugs, but I think the gears are turning enough
Yep,
for him to be like, wow, you know what, if I did really dial in this further, like
yep,
maybe I could get off of everything, right? But that's got to be his decision.
yeah.
So I think there are some people. There's kind of two, you know, strategies out there. There's the dip the toes in the water and ease into it, and that's cool. And you know, there's ways in my book to teach how to do that. And then there's the people who want to go all in, and you know, I encourage that because I think some people really got to immerse themselves in it and make a bunch of mistakes at it to really get a level of competency with it.
Right. And it depends on how much pain you're in. You know, once people are in enough pain that they decide they have to do something drastic and severe, then they're probably going to be more successful because they're ready to get out. They're sick and tired of being sick and tired, basically.
Yeah, and I actually had someone today who signed up for a call with me, and then you know when I called her, she's like, "Oh," like coughing. I've been sick for 2 weeks, and like I don't know. I just looked through what you teach. It just seems undoable for me, even though I'm like missing all this work and I'm sick all the time and I've got all these health issues. I'm like, okay, so you know, it sounds like this just isn't for you, and maybe not yet. Maybe things will have to get worse, or
Yeah,
like if that happens, give me a call. I'm happy to talk to you then. But like, if you're not ready for this now, I'm not going to try to force it to you. You know,
absolutely.
sounded
Absolutely.
pretty bad the predicament she was in, but like, yeah, people gotta want it. So,
Well,
um,
and the thing is often when it comes to programs or signing up for something or doing a coaching program with someone who's really going to help you, you know, people only equate what they're going to lose. They look at the money and they're like, okay, I'm going to put that money out. I'm going to lose that money, but they don't think about what they're going to gain, which if you gain your health, you make more money. If you get into a vitality of life, you create abundance. So in that, understanding that when we do things with people and we give, you know, we exchange value, we give the energy exchange for value, how much that can promote so much more in your life that you actually can't even imagine right now. But you're the answer for a lot of these situations that people are really needing. Like, I really feel it's necessary to create a better world, to create better health for people so that they can be vital and live their passions and live from an energetic field that says yes to life instead of laying on the couch being sick and miserable.
yeah, and what's cool about it is like, hey, more fruit. You know, like if people are gonna eat more fruit, well, that's we got to grow more trees,
Yeah.
provide it, and it's like more trees is a win for like the earth too, and everybody. It's like, okay, we'll have more oxygen, we'll have more, you know, like
Yeah.
there's like that only leads to good things, right? So what we do, what's best for us, ends up being actually coincidentally like great for the collective too.
Absolutely. So this is how you can get a hold of Dr. Ben. I could talk to you forever. This is so interesting. You guys get on some smoothies, get on his Instagram, you know, find out what this is all about, especially if you are struggling right now. There is no reason for us to struggle with terrible health. We can take our power back. We can get off medications. We can let our bodies be the brilliant healers that they are by putting in the right nutrients and foods. Thank you so much, Dr. Ben. This was incredible and really good, a wealth of information. Contact
Thanks
this
for
guy.
having me.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. Amazing. One last word of advice. What do you got for us?
I would say, um, it's simple, but it's not easy. Just apply the principles. Don't be afraid to make mistakes, because everybody does. Even I did. And just get in there, get your hands messy, and just have fun with it.
Absolutely. It's simple. It's not easy, but it's totally worth it.
Yeah, and it's a lot more intimidating than it seems when you actually get down and do it. So
Oh my
that,
God.
yeah.
It really is very simple. Once you get a groove going, it's super easy. Well, thank you so much for your time, Dr. Ben. We'll see you again for sure.
Okay, thank you.
And we love you all. Peace out.